Hey, welcome to Repetition and Contrast, where we provide tools for creatives. Um, Today, I am continuing a series I'm doing on really basic color theory, and the specific thing that I want to talk about today is called a tone. Last week we talked about shades and tints. A shade is when you take a color and you move it towards black. A tint is when you take a color and move it towards white. A tone is when you take a color and move it towards gray. Now, in traditional painting or art school kind of materials, what you would do is you would do this with paint, and you would kind of be eyeballing it. So I'm trying to give you a way to do a similar thing, except with digital tools. Now, the problem with that is we can do this a couple of different ways. And so what I want to do is what I've done is I've taken this row just so that I have all of the appropriate squares, and I'm going to change this color to one of my gray tones. And what I want to do is I want to move this red gradually to this gray. Now, as many of you are probably thinking, one of the easiest ways to accomplish this, a thoughtless way to accomplish this, like if you don't want to do any thinking at all, is what I'm saying, you could simply turn this into a gradient. And then what you would do is you would choose the color gray on one side, and you would choose the color red on the other side. And then the computer would do this for you. So all you'd have to do is convert this color here to this color. Now, if I click on the eyedropper, that isn't going to really help me because it's just going to convert it to this gradient. So what I would have to do in order to actually use this as a way to figure out my gradient is I would need to export as, and put this somewhere I could find it. And then I would need to bring that into this file. So that I would have a rasterized version of this to use to figure out my colors, right? So here's the first one. And then I select the next one. I use the eyedropper tool. And then I choose the next one. And I use the eyedropper tool. And then I choose the next one. And I use the eyedropper tool. But what I don't like about this from the perspective of it attempting to teach you anything about color theory is that while this certainly creates helps us understand the flow getting from red to gray, and then we can let's see here. I want these things to have that work. No, come on, man. Then change the color of it. Will that work? Yes. Okay, great. While that will certainly give you the right answer, what it doesn't do is help you figure out how to develop these things from your mind. Okay, so I want to show you a trick for how to figure out this exact same thing from doing the math yourself. And part of the reason I want you to do this is because as digital artists, it's good for us to sort of understand how things work. And the specific thing that I want you to know about how things work is this. Our red color, when it gets printed out, is going to be made up of these four colors. Like you've seen in your printer that you have to put 4 color cartridges in. Those 4 color cartridges are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And everything that gets printed is some combination of those colors. And in the case of printing this red, what's actually happening is the printer is printing 100% magenta and 100% yellow. When it's printing this gray down here, what it's doing is it's printing 65% cyan, 57% magenta, 55% yellow, and 32% black. And so in order to figure out the gradient between them, like how do we get from one to the other? The best way that I've come up with to figure this out is to do the math. And specifically, what I would say is this. If the cyan here is 0, and the cyan here, as we just said a moment ago, is 65, what I would do is I would say 65 divided by 6 gives me an average change for each one of these squares of 10.8%. So therefore, if I go in here and I change each one of these by that much, approximately that much, every time, that's going to get my cyan moving from 0 to 65. So this first value I'm going to put in here is 11. And then the next value I'm going to put in, and by the way, I'm only moving cyan right now. I'm not moving the rest of it. The next value I'm going to put in is going to be around 23. And then the next value I'm going to put in is going to be around 34. And all I'm doing is I'm sort of adding 10.8 to this every time, but it won't do point percentages. It'll only do whole number percentages. This is one of the limitations of CMYK color. And so this one's going to be 44. And this one's going to be 55. Okay. Now what I have to do is I have to figure out the difference from, going back to my red, I got to figure out the difference between 100 magenta to 57% magenta. And if I do that difference, 57, pardon me, let's do this. 100 minus 57 divided by 6. That gives me an average of 7.16% difference every time. So, once again, if I go here and I say magenta 93 instead of 100. Whoops, I'm on the wrong square. Magenta 93. And then magenta 86. I'm looking down because I already did the math on this before I started the video, and I wrote down what I felt like the approximate number should be based on this math. And then magenta 78. Ooh, I went the wrong way, didn't I? No, that's good. And then 71, and then 64. 71, then 64. Looking at the end, 57. Okay, great. Now, what I want to do is I want to figure out the approximate change from 100 value yellow to 55 yellow. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to say 100 minus 55 equals 45 divided by 6. That gives me an approximate change of 7.5 every time. So here we go. This one's going to be about 92, 93. It's already 93, so I'm going to say that's fine. This one's going to be around 85. Oh, wrong side, 85. Sure I did that right. I didn't. There we go. Cool. Yellow, 78. Now yellow, 70. Now yellow, 62. Should bring us in for a landing on the next one at yellow, 55. Right. Okay, and then K, 32 here, 0 here. So 32 divided by 6 is a difference of approximately 5.3 every level. So I'm going to say, oops, sorry. I'm gonna select this guy. I'm going to say 5. And then 10, 15, do 21 and 27. And that gets us there. Now, the reason I'm having you do this is so that you can get a really, really defined sense of how to build shades without having the computer do the work for you. I showed you how to let the computer do the work for you, and that's great. But you also want to be able to do this in your head should you need to. And so I'm going to do the rest of these with the time lapse on so that the video is sped up. But what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do 5 versions of red. So that I am representing all of my various versions of red inside of this one file. Make these pretty small so it'll all end up fitting. And then after I finish that, I'll do all the various versions of orange, and then I'll do all the various versions of yellow and green and blue, and finally purple. And again, the reason for this is so that we can figure these things out. Okay, there are all the red values. Now, start the orange values. Okay, that completes the oranges. Time to do yellow. All right, that takes care of all the yellows. Going on to the greens. That concludes the greens. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the blues and the purples and get this thing done. All right, there you go. All of the pure hues in this 6 color wheel, moving from its pure color to either a tint, a shade, or one of 5 tones. Now, you could get crazy with this and break the tones down into wider intervals than 5 between black and white. You could do all kinds of things to make this more complicated than what I've just shown you, but I think that this is enough to wrap your head around the general principle. The next thing that we need to discuss, the last thing we need to discuss as far as this business with color theory is concerned, is how to get midpoints between colors. You know, the way that it usually works. We'll talk about this in our next video. Is we usually blend colors together that are part of our color system or our palette in a given image in order to find other ways that we can use color in the image but still have everything feel connected. And that's what all of this is about, by the way, is we're trying to figure out how to use color effectively in terms of color relationships. And I know this may seem incredibly academic to you and possibly even incredibly boring, but this is the kind of thing that you would be doing if you went to a legit art school. And that's what I'm trying to do here on YouTube, is give you a complete art school experience, a complete design school experience. Um, And I know that there are probably some art teachers that wouldn't have you do this, but I'm trying to come up with ways to teach traditional art skills in digital formats. And this is one of the things that I think is very, very important in order to accomplish that, along with next week. And then we are finally going to start making cool things again that I think you'll be proud to have made. These are definitely exercises gearing us up to be able to do really interesting work. Okay? See you next time.